Good evening. After days of increasingly violent rhetoric against the FBI on right-wing social media and elsewhere, in the wake of the FBI's search of the former president's Florida mansion and attempts to discredit the Bureau by Republican lawmakers and certain cable channels, it now appears we've seen the first deadly consequences. An armed man killed in a shootout after trying to breach the FBI's Cincinnati office. Someone whose name is on a social media account spelling out in vivid detail the war he apparently believed he was launching. CNN's Bryn Gingras is doing the reporting on the deeply troubling story. Joins us now with the latest. Bryn, what happened, first of all, and what are you learning about the suspect?
Yeah, so Anderson, we've learned from multiple sources that the suspect's name is Ricky Schiffer, 42 years old. Investigators are still trying to figure out if he has what kind of a connection he may have with right-wing extremist groups. But what happened earlier today was at the Cincinnati field office of the FBI. Schiffer walked in there, according to our sources, armed with an AR-15 style rifle and a nail gun, and tried to breach that office. An alarm was sounded. He was pursued by enforcement, law enforcement, not just on the federal side, but the local and state as well. And there was a standoff for several hours in rural area of Ohio, which ended when law enforcement tried to have non-lethal ways of sort of bringing him in, tried to negotiate with him, but then he was killed in this standoff when none of that was working. And like you said, we have come across a user account on Donald Trump's social media site, Truth Social, bearing the same name of Ricky Schiffer, and authorities have not confirmed it's his account, but we do have one source telling my colleague Josh Campbell that there's a government ID matching the same picture. And in at least one post, he actually talks about, this user talks about what happened at the FBI field office today. I want to read for you word for word what this post says. It says, "Well, I thought I had a way through bulletproof glass, and I didn't. If you don't hear from me, it is true. I tried attacking the FBI, and it'll mean either I was taken off the internet, the FBI got me, or they sent the regular cops while." And it just sort of ends there. This post was actually about 15 minutes after we learned that this person breached the FBI office. So it's possible this person on the account wasn't able to finish that thought. And if you look deeper into this social media account, which is actually fairly new, there's not too many posts on there. There is just a ton of violent rhetoric against the FBI. This person said they were in Washington on January 6th, and there are several posts from this user talking about how they believe the election of Donald Trump in 2020 was stolen.
Did the user's postings become more violent after Monday's search in Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, they did. And actually, there was a post hours after the news broke about the search by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago. I want to read that to you. It says, "People, this is it. I hope a call to arms comes from someone better qualified, but if not, this is your call to arms from me." And this person encourages people to go get guns, go to pawn shops, to take up arms with federal authorities. And the rhetoric gets even more violent, saying, even the next day, saying, go to Mar-a-Lago, and if you face any FBI agents, kill them, is what one of the posts said. So obviously extremely disturbing rhetoric coming from this user account. We know, of course, as you already just mentioned, that the FBI has been sort of on alert after the incidents, or after the search rather, on Monday. But right now, this investigation, it's unclear exactly the motive of Schiffer going into this field office today. That's still being investigated. But of course, maybe we'll learn something, since there were hours again of negotiation happening between federal agents and Schiffer before this standoff ended this afternoon.
Bryn Gingras, appreciate it. Thank you. More now on Attorney General Garland's decision today to call the former president's bluff on the warrant for Monday's search.
The department filed the motion to make public the warrant and receipt in light of the former president's public confirmation of the search, the surrounding circumstances, and the substantial public interest in this matter.
Now, the former president has both those documents, could himself make them public any time, something his supporters have been calling on the Justice Department to do. And now it's up to him. The federal judge handling this in Florida has given the justice until tomorrow at 3 p.m. to meet with the former president and tell the court if he objects to the unsealing. So whatever happens could happen quickly. And the Attorney General set all this in motion without revealing a single detail about the investigation, something the Justice Department almost never has. So there's that. There's also new reporting tonight on the search itself, what precipitated it, and how sensitive some of the documents in question were. CNN's Evan Perez joins us with that. Evan, can you just walk us through the Attorney General's decision, which is rare, to speak out publicly and then to ask the court to unseal the search warrant and inventory items?
It is rare, Anderson, and let me tell you, on Monday, Merrick Garland was a no. on the idea of making a statement at all about this search, which obviously the former president went public with that statement describing it as a siege. And the former president has had, frankly, the ground to himself, right? He has had the ability to fashion the narrative about exactly what happened during the FBI search on Monday. And so what we've seen in the ensuing few days is some of the things that Bryn Greengrass was just talking about, threats against FBI agents. We've seen attacks against their credibility, attacks saying that the FBI may have planted some evidence, and that's what really helped inform what the Attorney General did today. He stood before us and said that essentially the former president has already spoken publicly about this, and so has essentially made it okay for the Justice Department to go to the court, a very unusual step, by the way, to say that we can, release these two documents. Now, the documents that we're going to get is probably not going to tell us a lot of the underlying information about this investigation, but it will tell us a few things about what the FBI took during that search, as well as possibly what crimes they are investigating. Again, that's very important information for us to learn, Anderson.
Is it clearer tonight why the government felt it needed a search warrant? Because the former president's legal team, they tried to paint themselves as cooperating the Department of Justice all along. I know you have some new details.
Right, Anderson. And so, look, I think what you can see, even from the comments from the Attorney General today, you can get a sense that they don't believe there was that level of cooperation. We know that they issued a subpoena to the Trump team back in June, and then they have a meeting to discuss getting these records from Mar-a-Lago back in June. The FBI leaves with some documents, some highly classified documents from that meeting. We know that they reached out later on. They asked for an additional lock to be put on the room where some of these documents were still being stored. And we also know that they served a second subpoena to ask for surveillance tapes, and that leads us to the search that happened on Monday. We get a sense, Anderson, from all of this interaction that the escalation that people saw on Monday really began much earlier. It began well before that June meeting. They clearly believed that less intrusive means were not working, and that led to Monday. The Attorney General, real quickly, I'll mention in his statement, he says, where possible, it is standard practice to seek less intrusive means as an alternative to a search and to narrowly scope any search that is undertaken. That is him pointing to the fact that we tried lesser means or less intrusive means, and then we had to take this ultimate step on Monday, Anderson.
Evan Perez, appreciate it. More now on the former president and the decision he now has to make, perhaps as soon as tomorrow, seeing as Caitlin Collins joins us with that. What's the reaction so far from the former president and his legal team?
Well, his orbit was pretty caught off guard, Anderson, by this announcement. It was remarkable in and of itself, as Evan just laid out, and so they were a bit caught off guard, still navigating in the hours after Attorney General Garland came out how to proceed and what they are going to do, and that involved them contacting outside attorneys. Of course, the former president has been represented by a slew of attorneys. Lately, he has focused on one who was present when this search happened on Monday, and another one, Evan Kokorin, who has been defending the president and consulting with him on how to proceed going forward here. What I am told is they have not made a decision yet on how they're going to proceed. Of course, they've got that deadline by 3 p.m. tomorrow. It does appear that they are leaning toward the idea of challenging this, of objecting to the idea of unsealing this search warrant as the Justice Department laid out today, though, just to be clear, they have not made a decision yet. And so that remains to be seen where they are going to go from here. But certainly this is something they were not expecting for the Attorney General to come out to do, as really, Anderson, for the last several days, it's been Trump and his allies driving the narrative about this search until, of course, the Justice Department came out today to talk about it.